Okay, so welcome to the second episode of PuckPod by BD Sports. This is our premier hockey podcast by BD Sports, of course. I'm Bryan, founder, co-owner of the site, and I'm here with my co-hosts David and Cristian. You guys would know them if you guys watched the first episode. Make sure you guys tune into that if you missed it, and also check out our articles on our site. Let's get into it. David, Cristian, David, start. How was your week?
It was a bit long, I won't lie to you. So the just a little personal news, like just came back from the hospital. My dad unfortunately broke his leg and his femur in three places on Wednesday. He had to have emergency surgery. Got that done on Friday, so he's gonna be in for a little bit. So I'll be like back and forth over there. But everything went well. Long road to recovery, but everybody's been sending him well wishes. So and he really appreciates it. And I mean, he doesn't want to be there. He's a bit uncomfortable on that bed. Been on that bed now since Wednesday night. Um, but yeah, what can you do? Can't do anything else.
Best best wishes to him, of course, from my family to yours, and I'm sure anybody who's listening, you know, best wish or probably wishing your dad like the best of luck with that. I mean, it's tough. I mean, Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to Canadians, obviously, but
Mhm.
I don't know, like it's especially a long weekend. You want to be there with your family, but just hang in there, Mr. Leo, and hopefully things will get better. Christian, how was
Thanks,
your
man.
week? Christian, how was your
Yeah,
weekend?
echoing what Brian what you said there. Best wishes to your dad, Dave. I mean, yeah, Thanksgiving weekend just bad timing, but it's the family that makes Thanksgiving, so you make it work wherever it may be, right? On the sporting front, it was a long week as well, right? Not hockey related, but if you're a Jays fan, tough weekend obviously there. I was at game two, and yeah, I got no words. I'm usually Mr. Optimistic. I'm always like, okay, we can take something out of this. There's lessons to be learned, but I don't know. Not too many that immediately come to mind. Um, Other than that, new week now. Looking forward to hockey, and that's where my focus is now.
You guys have any comments on the Jays? I'll let you guys take over this one if you want.
Dave, you got anything
Uh,
before I get into it?
Man, I didn't know 8-1 was the new 4-1. I'll start it off there.
Mm.
Listen, I know everybody was Charlie Montoya was behind. Oh, sorry, Charlie Montoya. I'm so
I
fixated
mean,
on.
that was the thing too at one point, right? Right?
Yeah, that
Not
was
wrong.
before. No, that was my mistake. John Schneider, who actually you know what, since he's come in, I actually I've enjoyed what he's done. I thought he's made a lot better decisions with the ball club. But man, it really was a tough look to pull Gosman, who was having a pretty good game. He got himself into a bit of a jam there in the sixth inning. Bases loaded. You have one out or two outs, I believe.
Um, there was two outs. There was two
Two
outs.
outs, right? Yeah. Like, listen, I know he was at almost at 100 pitches, but I see that's the thing. Like, listen, I'm not a major league manager. I don't claim to be also like a baseball, like MLB, like fanatic, like thing.
Yeah.
But man, that's a real tough decision to be put in. On one hand, you have your starting pitcher. You brought him in free agency this year. He's your shining piece, let's say, on that rotation beside Alec Manoah. And you don't let him, and even to get to like 100 pitches. Like, I know he's like 5 pitches off. Maybe you
Yeah.
let him take the extra batter there to get him to that 100 pitch threshold. It's a real tough decision. I don't know about you, Christian, man, but I would have left him in probably, I think. But I could also see where he's coming from there.
I'm in agreement on that last point. Like, I think most people you talk to, it's hindsight's 2020. You leave Gosman in, but when you're in the moment, obviously it's a lot tougher. We can understand the argument that Schneider and probably the stats he had in front of him. I know I was listening today on the radio. They were talking about just similar to hockey, where there's so many stats that front offices have that we don't have access to. And in baseball, it's that to the nth degree, right? This is obviously the the birthplace of analytics, really. So tough to know what it was that Schneider had available to him that led him to that decision. But at the end of the day, I can't throw blame at just Schneider, just Tim Meza, Anthony Bass, another one there. Romano obviously gets hit around a bit, but when you can point to that many people, there's obviously wasn't an easy solution or just one play that would have made everything better. Um, and I know you brought up there the new 4-1. I mean, the one thing that makes it so different from it was 4-1 is that Leafs collapse. It felt like it happened in an instant, right? Like I know exactly where I was sitting. It flew by. That was like a high speed car crash, and this was like a slow train. It was not like being there in person. Never experienced anything like it. Never.
That was death by in like lethal injection, and I think it would also be remiss to also not talk about what happened to George Springer and Bo Bichette in the shallow outfield there. Listen, I hope, and I guess everybody else on this podcast would hope George Springer the fastest recovery. Hopefully it wasn't anything too serious. I haven't really heard an update on him since. I've been kind of honestly trying to stay away from the post game. I can't even like I don't even want to go. It was the same reaction to me like after every Leaf playoff run that they've pissed away.
Yeah.
But we do hope George Springer has a speedy recovery. He is like honestly easily becoming one of the just an absolute spark plug for that team. He's such a vocal leader, and you could see it on the field, and you have to commend him for it. But you know, I just can't help but think like, listen, and I know it's Bo Bichette is that type of guy. He always gives me the Mitch Marner vibes. I don't know about you, Cristian, but it's just like he always seems to want to do everything, but sometimes you can't do everything and it ends up hurting the team. In my mind, personally, as somebody who just played baseball like at house league levels, I don't really see the reason why Bo has to run backwards into the outfield with Springer coming in. Like, listen, if it drops for a bloop hit, a bloop single, you could get away with it. Maybe it scores a run and it turns that from a 9, because at that point it was 9-6. That scored all 3 runs to tie it because the bases were loaded. So maybe instead of scoring all 3 runs, it scores 1, and Romano maybe gets out of it. We saw after he really couldn't get out of it. That was that was easily the toughest game I've seen out of Jordan Romano all season from what I've watched, and it's just like, of course, it had to come in like a do or die game. That's just how it kind of goes for stars in Toronto sports. I don't know if you feel the same way, Cristian, but
I know a lot of people echo the idea that there's a curse, but I don't know. The Raptors, they gave us a little bit of life there in 2019. I think they have our last Toronto playoff series win. So, yeah, I mean, outside of the Raptors, it's been a little bit of a tough go there. I think we can leave it at that. It's enough non-hockey content. Actually, you know what, Brian? Though F1, me and you are big F1 guys. I don't know, Dave, if you tune into a bit of F1, but I know Brian, you probably got to say something there. So
I was waiting so long to have my turn because I'll be honest with you guys. I want to dip into the Jays first, but that's the only Jays game I've ever I watched last season or like this season.
It's your fault.
Yes, I take full responsibility. I started watching when it was 4-0. I just turned it on and I just was doing some homework. And then all of a sudden, like as time passed, I just started paying more and more attention to it. And I was like, this is not possible. How is it possible that you blow 8-1? But I don't know, like 10-9 at the end of it, and I honestly, like, I'm not a Jays fan. If I had to support a team, it'd be the Nats. I haven't watched baseball since 2019, really, like, but I did not think that it was possible for that to happen in front of my own 2 eyes. Like, I haven't seen something like that in so long, genuinely. And you guys are so accustomed to it based on your expression. Like, I was flabbergasted. I just didn't know what was going on. Anyway, we'll end it at that.
Wait, Brian, before we end that conversation, would you say the last collapse you've seen something like of that type of like magnitude? And we're gonna compare apples to oranges here, but would it be the Barca PSG Champions League semi? Was that
Yeah,
round of 16 game?
I'd say so.
Probably
Yeah,
the closest.
2017. Yeah, that was like
2017.
that's the one that, or actually no, Barcelona Liverpool, the one where they went up 3 goals in the first
Ooh,
leg.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, the Origi game. Yeah,
yeah.
okay, first, fair
Like
enough.
I don't see that often. Like a lot of the teams I support, like are like strong mentally or like well structured, or they don't have voodoo against them. So I don't know, but that was something else. Also, ending off the Jays, I'm only gonna say one sentence or maybe 5 sentences about this, but Max Verstappen, two-time world drivers champion. This was the most anticlimactic F1 win I've ever seen, ever. But we'll take it. I mean, I can't complain. My guy won. Cristian?
Uh, yeah, I'll add on to the sentiment of most anticlimactic win I've ever seen. I tried to stay up to watch that race. It was supposed to start at 1 a.m. Terrible conditions out there in Japan at Suzuka. Heavy torrential downpour. I actually don't even know when the race started because I fell asleep. I woke up in the middle, not even the middle of the race, the middle of the still continuing rain delay at maybe close to 2 a.m. And I'm like, okay, I gotta call it quits here. And I just woke up and I saw, yeah, like 5 a.m. Max Verstappen wins, and we don't even have to get into all the other controversies that also happened, safety wise, rules wise. F1 and FAA kind of make the NHL look like they're immaculate with their rules and everything, and really any of the North American sports leagues. F1 puts them to shame, and not in a good way. I think we can leave it at that.
If you guys want us to cover F1 with articles, with content, with podcasts like this, we're definitely open to. Just, I don't know, leave it in the comment or send us an email or just leave a note somewhere. We'll get to it. Believe me, we're looking to broaden our horizons, and baseball, F1, definitely ways that we can do it. But on a more on topic note, let's get into our first topic. The first topic that we have here is, I have it in my notes as the regular season has already started. As you guys probably know or don't know, the NHL regular season started this weekend, Thanksgiving Canadian weekend, in which the Preds have played 2 games against the Sharks in, I think, Prague. Was it in Czech Republic? Somewhere
The
in
first game
Europe.
was in Prague for sure. I don't remember if the second one was also in Prague. Gotta check that one. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I didn't even know that like the season started, and meanwhile every other game is happening like after today. Like we're recording this on the 10th of October. Every game is happening, I think, starting the 11th, correct? Onwards. But why did they play 2 games before? Like I don't know. That's just terrible market.
Okay. Yeah, just we know the NHL marketing has been bad, and it was extremely bad this time around to the point where there was no marketing. It was just absent. If you're not a hardcore fan, and even then, I think I saw more ads promoting the North American start to the season, like we said this week, than the real start of the season because you got regular season games being played. I'm not too sure. There's probably some travel reasons why they had to do it that much earlier, but that's not what bothers me. It's just market it. Like the whole point of a global series is that you want to attract more fan attention, right? So I don't know. Maybe the European advertising was going crazy, but I mean, I would have been interested to watch a regular season game in the middle of the preseason. It wasn't available in Canada to watch, as far as I know. So it's really it's just frustrating because I want more people to. This is a selfish take, but I would love for more people to enjoy the sport that I enjoy. Right. So when there's no marketing for said sport, it's very frustrating.
David?
I'll echo Christian's sentiment as well. Like, like I wanted to watch. I would have. Listen, if I couldn't make it, I would have. I wouldn't have maybe gone out of my way to go watch a game, but I also wouldn't have minded um, having the games like to watch. Like I would have liked that option. I think that's where the NHL really went wrong here. So I do have a couple of stats for the case for the NHL going to play over. So like, listen, they've got 25% of their current roster hail from Europe. You could also count the Russian, they travel across two borders there, but most of the Russian players play on hail from the European side. So, if we look to the NFL, they've played the past 2 weeks now. They played games in England, and I believe next week they have a game in Munich, Germany. They're trying to grow the game in overseas. They really do it well. If you watch any NFL, like if you've seen any NFL content over the past few weeks, you'll know that they really have been trying to push their games in the UK. I can't say for the people in the UK who would be interested to watch it, but I know in America, in Canada, where we get the NFL, they've been promoting it, but it's kind of been a little bit radio silence for the thing. And it makes sense why they kind of started it earlier, just because of, I think you touched upon it before, Cristian. Travel and stuff like that. If you start to put games like that in the middle of the season, which they actually are, the Jackets and the Avs are going to be playing in Finland sometime at the beginning of November. They're going to, that's really going to, I think that's really going to affect those two teams more than it will affect the Sharks and the Preds. So for as much as we're like, the NHL marketing's terrible, while that may be true, they also do, they are kind of looking out for their players' well-being here, because, if you're going to put a trip to Europe directly in the middle of the regular season, it's going to be a lot tougher. It's going to put a lot more constraints on the players and the teams and their facilities and stuff. And another thing too, I think personally it's a smart idea in premise. Like, you're bringing the Sharks and the Preds over, who, by a quick look, a lot of their top end talent are European stars. On the Sharks side, they've got Thomas Hertl, who potentially might be one of the best Czech players there is right now. That's up for debate. There's other guys there, David Pastrnak, stuff like that. But then you also have guys like Timo Meyer, who's Swiss, Erik Karlsson, who's Swedish, Jussi Saros, who's Finnish, yeah. Roman Josi, Swiss, and Philip Forsberg, who's Swedish as well. But definitely it hampers it, calling it a global series and kind of limiting it only to Europe. And
I just don't understand how, like, all three of us keep up with the NHL on a daily basis, like genuinely, like on even hourly sometimes, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it. But even though the team I support is not directly involved with that game specifically, like, how did I not know that it was going to start until, like, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes before or even after? Like, this is sort of the regular season. This is like the second biggest moment for the sport in the year. First being obviously the start of the playoffs, right? But I don't know. I just didn't know about it. And if you think of it like that, that's pretty terrible. I just didn't. I guess you can't say I didn't pay attention, but I guess you can say that the league didn't push it enough, right? Because if the league did push it enough, the general fan even would have known. I mean, we all know when the Champions League starting. We all know that the World Cup is starting soon. But why didn't we know that this was happening? And in the middle of preseason too, just felt a little bit awkward. But at the end of the day, it's done. And given there's travel restrictions, potentially, given maybe COVID situations, I'm not too sure what it was, but it makes sense at the end of the day. Any final thoughts for this, guys?
Not on that specifically. I mean, while we're on the topic of the NHL marketing being bad, we can stay pretty on that focus in terms of if you take a look at the digital marketing ads, the digital ads we've got going on around the rinkside borders now that's being implemented this year. This is something that I don't remember this personally, because I definitely watched a ton of the 2016 World Cup of Hockey. And apparently they tested the digital border ads in that tournament. I don't really have a memory of that. If they did do it, they did a good job. If I don't remember, I would assume, but we do have those coming in this year. And I would say my take on that is similar to the jersey sponsors, where if it's out of sight, out of mind in terms of I don't want to notice them, I don't want to know that it's digital. If I can't tell the difference between a physical border ad and a digital one, they're doing a great job. People are concerned about the camera tracking and if it won't be as sticky as obviously a physical border. It's not going anywhere, physical ad. But we might have problems with the tracking on these here. But if we don't, it doesn't bother me one bit. And same idea as last episode. If it's making the NHL more money, which you have to assume is the main reason why they do these things, then yeah, that's cool with me.
You're dying.
Dave, you got any? What am I dying for?
You're dying for the cap to go up, huh? I saw the Leafs cap report. You have what, $6?
We'll get into that.
Was
Oh, it's
$4.
not that $4, buddy. Yeah, and they're not the only team. Well, they are the only team in the single digits, but there's a couple other teams that are real close. We'll get into that later. Yeah.
But
Anything on the border ads?
Yeah, I got something. I actually I watch a lot of soccer, as you guys probably already know. But soccer has moving ads or digital ads. Soccer's a much slower game. Soccer's camera angle is actually wider than hockey, right? In the sense that you have a more bird's eye view of it. Like when I play NHL, for example, I like to be in there at the top of the building. I want to see everything, right? So my point with this is that if you're closer up and you're going at that speed, there's a chance that looks a little bit awkward. There's also the instance of it affecting play. So I watch Bayern Munich quite a bit, and there's this player that you see from the team named Thiago, and so he's in the middle of the park and he has the ball, and one of the advertisements, this is around Christmas time, where it was a Santa Claus truck on the ad, and it would run it across the digital ad. You know what I mean? And it was, since it's Santa Claus, it's obviously wearing red, the same shirt of the Bayern shirt. So he thought that it was the right back or left back making the run. So he literally obviously
You passed it to no one.
Yeah,
basically.
The guy on that side collected it, but it actually affected play. And that's the one instance that I remember it. I gotta show it to you guys after. You guys will see it and you'll be like, wow, that's actually ridiculous. Credits to him for having the
I do want to see that.
So how was Santa Claus's touch though?
The real questions. Dave's asking the real questions here because hey, he's got a good touch.
He dummied the ball, bro.
Does he have a Canadian citizenship? We can get him on the Canadian team for the World Cup.
Him and Davies on the flanks, man. That's going to be a lethal combination there.
I don't want to.
Actually, that's not true. Davies plays up top.
Davies might be hurt, and I ironically also think that it was on Davies. I think Davies is the guy who collected the ball from that. But
oh boy,
I'll show you guys the clip after, or maybe if copyright strikes don't take it down, take this pod down. But Thiago literally checks in for the ball in the middle of the park, and then he's expecting movement, obviously, right? And then the Santa Claus just comes in on the ad and makes a run, a beautiful run down the touchline. But I don't know, it impacted play, and I'm not cool with that. When you start having situations like that, it's distracting, one, and two, it can actually affect the game. And that's obviously, it didn't have an amazing impact, but it still almost gave away possession.
So for him to see the ad, the way that you explained it to me, I'm trying to figure this out in my head as well. Are you saying then the digital ads in soccer, how is the player seeing that on the field? Because I think the way that it's working in the NHL at least is it's just like a broadcast thing where the players are gonna have no idea what's going on. Is it that I think in soccer, don't they have the sliding kind of advertisements where it rotates or is it something else?
They're all
the video boards.
The
video boards, okay.
In soccer, yeah. So I could speak on that. So from what I've heard is in stadium, in arena, ads are going to be one thing. So maybe they're looking at putting out a cheaper cost for some companies because it might not be seen by, everybody watching at home. And then the ads around, the ads on broadcast will be, it'll be for the television audience, basically. Everybody in the stadium won't be able to see it. So I agree from what you're saying, Brian, but it is just going to be a little bit different because we can't see like they won't be able to see the ad, so you won't. I don't think you'll be able to see anything like that. But from what I heard is, the actual broadcast might get interrupted at points. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we at some point see within a couple of months instances of it not working perfectly. Like, maybe the puck might get caught up or we lose track of the puck for whatever reason. So I think on that note, maybe we give it a little bit of time before we start jumping down, everybody's throat. At the end of the day, it is a very it's a very effective moneymaker for them. Let them make their money. Honestly, I'm still on that sentiment.
I'd rather you put the like another ad on the back of the jerseys behind the numbers or something, or underneath the numbers or something. Like when you guys see this clip that I'm about to show you after, you guys will be like, okay, like it legitimately does not make sense if it impacts play, and once it impacts the product at core, that's where I have an issue. I'm always gonna be for the players making more money. Don't get me wrong, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, and like I could just see this going wrong, especially when it's a contact sport like hockey. Just a millisecond distraction, boom, you're on the floor on the ice. It just you're taking chances. You're opening up Pandora's box, and I don't know. Like think of it like this: you're driving down the highway and you see those big, giant advertisements down the highway with like the digital ones, right? I don't know the
Yeah.
statistic if it's caused an accident or anything, but you guys know down Highway 7 in Islington. You guys know that hill. There's a TV there now on a hill.
Yeah.
Like that you're just asking for trouble. And I know this is like comparing apples and oranges, right? But I'm not big on opening Pandora's box when it comes to distractions, life, and safety.
Yeah, no, I could definitely agree with that.
I'll have
Maybe
to see the implementation before we have like our full on opinions. Like Dave said, we're probably gonna give it a bit of time. Maybe it's
100%.
something we revisit later and kind of give our reviews of what we think is going on there.
Or maybe like another way if you wanted to put like an ad. I know that some teams already do this, but um like I don't know, Red Bull power play or like Powerade power play for the night or something like that. Stuff like that. Just
I think a lot of teams do have that
yeah, yeah.
implemented. Yeah, I don't know if every team does, but yeah, I feel like the Leafs is probably. I think it's been Tim Hortons one at least sometime before I
Is it
got.
Tim's? Is it not Scotiabank now, or is that? Am I
Maybe
thinking
it
of
is
something else?
Scotiabank.
My point
Oh,
is,
you might be right.
Could be any
there's
of them.
always a way to sell advertising, and
Yeah.
there's a right way and wrong way though. But anyway, we'll move on to the next topic if you guys would like. The next topic
Sure.
I have here for you guys is the Barzal extension. How do you guys feel about that? Considering somebody had a take last week's episode saying that the Isles were gonna have a 50% chance of making the playoffs this year.
I guess I'll lead this one off, Christian, since that was my take that he's referring to. Listen, I don't mind the money. I get it. He's not hasn't been a 20 goal guy in a few years. That's been a big knock at him. I do I think he has to be a 20 goal guy? It would help. It would certainly help. Goals are goals are goals are goals, right? Uh, and again, I'll throw this back to the Leafs here. As we've seen, somebody who has a similar style set, I'm not going to say that they're the same player here, but Mitch Marner and him kind of have a similar style of play, pass first mentality. And one of the biggest criticisms that Mitch Marner was leveled at Mitch Marner was over the past couple of years that he wasn't shooting, he wasn't scoring. He went there. Christian, what was it? It was quite a while where he didn't score a power play goal.
Yeah, I
Was it
think
a
I might have
playoff
been
power play goal?
approaching. Maybe it was a calendar year without a power play goal in the regular
Yeah.
season.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I mean, listen, Lane Lambert's coming in. I listen. I'll be honest with you. I said that take. Haven't done much research on Lane Lambert. So it'd be interesting to see um, how he starts the season and how he takes this team. I think he's probably due at least about a year or so, unless something goes catastrophically bad for him, which would make my 50% take look extremely bad. Uh, but I do think it's a very fair contract for Barzal. I don't know what you guys feel.
I'll go first.
I mean, go Brian, hit us with the metropolitan take here,
I think it's a good
the
deal.
Metro Division.
I like
Yeah.
deals where you have a promising forward, young guy, locking him up for 8 years. I like how it's under 10. I think that the numbers didn't help Barzal, but what I can say is that when you lock up your number one guy for 8 years, it's always a good thing, and especially for under 10 in a cap that's going up, the move just makes sense. And I think that Lou Lamoriello did a fantastic job with that. Obviously, new coaching system, team that might not do so hot next season, but the thing is, it doesn't matter if you have him for 8 years. He's locked up. What can you do? What can he do as a player? Like, he can force a trade at worst, but at the end of the day, he's an aisle. He's for a while, for a long time, and he's likely going to be number one guy there until he signs with the Leafs for an overpaid contract. Right, guys?
Man, I mean, I'm not opposed. Definitely not opposed, Brian. I'm mad that you didn't take the opportunity to make that pun. You were about to do it. You're like, he's been an aisle for and then you change. You should have said he's been an aisle for a while. Come on, man. I wanted that rhyme. I wanted it.
I
But
paused myself there
I mean,
because
on
I
the
was like,
bars that
I paused myself there because I was like, I don't know if I want to finish this sentence.
if you listen to the podcast often enough, I'll probably make some puns like that. Those are my guilty pleasure.
Puns away,
But
baby.
the bars, yeah. Once in a while, they're gonna come out. The bars deal, I think fair is the right word to describe it. We talked about Marner again here. I'll just note that sometimes we forget like this guy was in the same draft as Marner. I don't know why, just because he must have broken out into the league 1 or 2 years after Marner. He obviously won the Calder, so it wasn't the same year. And for that reason, I guess in my mind, I always thought he was 1 or 2 years younger, but he's not. And when you put it that way, think about what Marner signed coming out of his entry level deal. It was 6 year term at the 10.9 range, right? Just under 11. Whereas you're locking up Matt Barzal, same age, 8 year term for 2 million less. And when you put it like that, and once again, we talk about the cap again, it's only going up. That's a great deal. I got no qualms with it. I do got lots of qualms with the Islanders, but that contract's not one of them. And on the Lane Lambert front, I don't know if anyone's got too much research on this guy, unless you're in the NHL or an Isles fan to watch preseason. But I want to say the way he's been billed is kind of like the disciple of Barry Trotz, and I feel like the game plan for the Islanders is let's replace Barry Trotz without actually replacing Barry Trotz in the sense of how can we keep his style but have it come from a different voice. I feel like that's what they've been aiming for here. We'll see if that's a successful strategy, but it'll be curious, and Barzal will be at the head of that team as usual.
I feel like
Oh,
oh, Dave, go.
I was gonna say, what are the odds we get pajama boy picks from Matt Barzal like we did for John Tavares in 8 years?
That's tough.
Well, I think Barzal's a BC boy, so maybe he's got Canucks pajamas that we don't know about yet.
Maybe.
There was other extensions too. There was another one. Obviously, we had Haig come down today, but also the one that made a bit more news is Uyghur, right?
Yep.
With Calgary to quote unquote win the trade. I mean, honestly, without the extension, I would have still 100% argued that Calgary won the trade because in the event that Uyghur didn't want to sign an extension, well,
Flip.
you trade him at the deadline, you flip him. So whatever assets you're getting for Uyghur, you're still winning the trade with that. Once again, another fair deal. I feel like in the playoffs last year, I saw a bit of criticism of Uyghur from Florida fans specifically that he was having some brain farts in the playoffs in their 2 rounds there. So maybe we'll see that come to light, at least from a Canadian perspective, some things that we didn't know about Uyghur, but it's a fair deal. Once again, cap's going up. 6 is going to be the new 5. They got a loaded blue line there. Great deal, if you're asking me.
For anyone wondering, it's 6.25 million times 8. What I have here is that it's a very good deal. I think Uyghur is the number 1 D-man on most teams. I rate him really highly. I also like my offensive D-man. But This is a contract that could age like milk. If he slows down, if his numbers slow down, and he is like shaky defensively, and that's only gonna progress as he gets older, because you're paying for offense, you're not paying for defensive capability. Oh man, that contract could look really really bad. Long term, of course, this is let's say 5 years after, but I also think that the Flames have a 4 year window to win the cup, so it fits their time frame. It's just that, yeah, the Flames definitely won that trade. Believe me, that's probably one of the biggest trades we've ever seen, and I'm glad that Calgary won it because I don't like the idea of a player forcing their way out. So at least they got what they, at least they got their money's value worth of it, or they got their king's ransom for Kachuk. But at the end of the day, that's tough, man. Like you're, I just don't like the idea of paying an offensive demon long-term contract when he's already shown defensive deficiencies. Yeah, it's fair right now, but and yeah, it fits their window, but I don't know. Like, can you just imagine 8 years from now you have another 6.25 dead weight on your books? It just doesn't look too good.
I think the one thing to that, Brian, is like in 5 years, I think the 6.25 is going to look a lot more manageable with the cap
That's true.
hopefully going up by a substantial margin from what I've heard so far. Listen, I'm not going to claim that I'm a hockey insider here. I'm not Elliot Friedman. I'm not Chris Johnson, but I do see stuff on Twitter, and from all accounts, the cap is supposed to be going up substantially over the next few years, and maybe in 5 years, that 6.25 million doesn't look as unappetizing as it does right now, or how it could look in this scenario right now. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see for
Like
when that time comes.
like I said, the Flames, like based on what I can see, they have a window of 4 to 5 years. The deal makes sense. They have a weak division too, and they're probably going to get to the second round again. It's just that, you know, if they win the cup or if they get to the final, then the deal's worth it at the end of the day. But I don't know if they just can't get it done. It's one of those things that could just not end up well, if that makes sense. And I think you guys can see where I'm coming from. Long contracts that just don't get the team anywhere long term. But if they do something within their window before it shuts, then I guess it's worth it. But anyway,
Yeah.
going into the next topic I have a note that just says Leafs talk and new goal song. I'll let you guys take over this one. I don't know what your goal song is. I'll be honest with you guys, and take it away, guys.
Dave, let's start with the goal song. I feel like you've got a spicy take. Not even spicy. I think you have possibly a correct take. So please entertain us.
Okay, so I again, listen, guys. It's not going to be the first time they're going to hear this, but I didn't do all of my homework this week. I was gonna go through. I love music. Don't get me wrong. I was gonna go through like a list of songs that potentially could replace the Leafs. Sorry, the Leafs' current goal song, which for everybody that doesn't know, that isn't a Leaf fan, or just hasn't been scored on by Austin Matthews in the past 5 to 6 years at the Scotiabank Arena. It's "You Make My Dreams Come True" by Hall & Oates, which is a absolute banger. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the song, but the Leafs have had it since the 2017 season, the beginning of the 2017 season. So that's coming up on 5 years, almost 6 years now, I believe, with this year. Man, that's a long time for a goal song. I know most teams change it around this time. It's probably about a 5 year window. I think the last one that the Leafs had lasted about 5 or 6 years, which I can't remember the name of that song. Those were dark days. I'm not even going to try to bring up old trauma, but
PTSD. Yeah.
yeah, some bad PTSD. But listen, I'm in the boat to reinvent the wheel. Not reinvent the wheel, but change it up. Let's get something new in here. Let's we've got a whole list of artists from the Toronto area that we could go to. I don't know what your opinion is on it, Christian, but who in your mind, who would you kind of like to see maybe take hold over here?
I don't know if I've got like a specific artist in mind, not even necessarily a specific song, but this is something that I talk about like basically after every Leaf game I go to. If I'm at a Leaf game with somebody, I tell them what I'm about to tell you guys here. The Leafs in arena presentation it's just, it doesn't intimidate opponents. It's a very, listen, I totally get this. It's a very family friendly environment, which is like, okay, like that makes total sense. But look at the Bruins. I know we point to the Bruins because they've caused us the most pain, but you hear that goal song, you hear Zombie Nation, and man, does it drive you crazy.
The one?
And those fans drive you crazy. It's the reputation that Jays fans have at the Rangers Center, right? That you come into our barn, we're gonna knock your socks off with how loud we were. And we knocked Robbie Ray's socks and almost his pants off too, okay? So that's what I want
Those
from the
tight
Leafs.
pants, baby.
Right? So that's what I want. And funny enough, I'm pretty sure the Bruins stole Zombie Nation from us, like not directly after we used it. I think we used it. This is like probably like 2004 that the Leafs were using it, but we had that. We had that. We need to make the Leafs environment a bit more intimidating. And Hall and Oates, I love Hall and Oates. You make my dreams come true. That's maybe like number 3 on my list of favorite Hall and Oates songs. Like, hit me with some Private Eyes, some Out of Touch, and I'm grooving. So there's no hate for Hall and Oates here.
Little man
It's just a
here.
matter of, yeah, that's on the like songs too, man. Yeah, You Make My Dreams Come True, number 4 now. But I wish it was a more intimidating environment, and it goes even past the goal song. It goes to things like our Twitter hashtag Leafs forever, right? Used to be hashtag Stand Witness. This is how I would look at it, and this is how I'll sum it up. Like we said, Hall & Oates came in 2016-17 with the emergence of the kids. It's, here's the kids. Everyone be happy. This is the hopeful future. And You Make My Dreams Come True captures that perfectly. And so does our win song, another banger, Maxine Nightingale, right back where we started from. I don't want any change there because after a win, let's get dancing. But the kids are grown up. I would also like the song to grow up and reflect that this is a powerhouse team. You get scored on, get ready to hear the song again after you get scored on. So that's my take on the goal song and just the general Leafs presentation. I think it can be better. Bryan, I know you love Leafs in arena presentation. This is your favorite topic. Please hit us with some cold hard facts here.
I actually I have nothing to say about like the Leafs. I don't like I don't really keep
Tell us
up.
about the Caps though. Tell us what the Caps do.
They have a siren, and then each player has a custom song. But where I was going before I get into the Capitals, what I was going to was I don't know if you guys like know the Chicago Blackhawks goal song, Chelsea Dagger, but
Never heard of it. Never heard of it.
but that song is engraved in some Canucks fans and the Sedins forever. Like they probably like get PTSD after hearing that. And I do agree. Like it's amazing to have a very strong home court advantage when you're when you're performing in the playoffs and stuff like that. I mean, we've all seen the Canucks fumble against the Blackhawks so many times, and I think that the goal song does add to that. I don't know what you guys would want specifically for your goal song. I'm more of the like my team plays a siren and then they play custom songs for each player, which I don't know gives more personality, especially because we watch a league that doesn't have as much personality as compared to like the NBA or whatever. But yeah, give me your take on that. Pick a song, guys.
Like I said, I don't have a specific song, but hey, I'll give you one by next episode, and it'll encapsulate what I said: intimidation. That's my main factor on what I'm looking for a song.
So I will give a take. The one that was thrown around was Poppy's Home by Drake. So obviously we have the connotations there to Big Poppy himself, number 34. It might not fit as well, maybe just like the song, the song's title.
You want something catchy and annoying,
but
you know?
You know what I personally like is something that kind of like relates to the city. So I don't know if you guys know, for Seattle, they use Nirvana's Lithium. So Nirvana was a very like they came up through Seattle. That's where they were formed, and they're a very very big like that whole city is a very big like influence on the grunge scene, and that Lithium. That chord when it goes, yeah. That's my best Kurt Cobain impression
Replace
right
Lithium. Just take that clip right there and make that the goal song. That's it. We got it figured out.
But, dude, a little bit of Nirvana definitely gets a little pep in your step, 100%. Another one that was brought up is "Sweetness" by Jimmy Eat World that the Florida Panthers play. That's a NHL 2004 classic or 2003 classic. Older fans of the game would definitely know. I might have just dated myself there by not knowing the exact year that song was in. But
What I can say for my team, the Capitals, is that we do probably have the two best power play songs in the whole league, "Joker and the Thief," and we have this WWE song,
100%.
"Moi," Chef's kiss to that. Um, and
Yeah,
yeah, like at least that we have that for our team identity. But what I can tell you is that Lars Eller scoring. I have the Tiger. Nothing's better. And we'll leave.
that's a great choice.
We'll
Yeah.
leave. It makes sense because his nickname is Tiger. So when he scores,
Okay.
I have the Tiger. Yeah. But we'll leave the
Okay.
music thing at that because unfortunately we don't have control of it. But what I can tell you right now is that if we did have control, we'd probably get some identity into the team, into our teams actually. And we'll move into the next topic. I have a note here. I know you guys want to talk about this. Like I said, I don't have many comments on it. But what do you guys think about the Leafs opening night roster?
Dave, you want to go first here, buddy?
take it away, buddy.
Okay. Let's start from the bottom. Honestly, let's start with the fourth line. My God, that's a beautiful fourth line. I've been just pounding the table for Zach Aston Reese all summer. Finally got him on his actual contract off that PTO, and we got a monopoly, or we're starting to get a monopoly on the players with hyphenated last names. Okay, we should have put in a waiver claim on Bryan's favorite winger there, Axel Janssen Fjallby, just for the hyphen. We didn't do that, but like we said, we got SDA in the minors, and then on our right wing flanking camp on that fourth line is Abe Kubel. I can't say I've got the greatest take on Abe Kubel right now. I need to see some regular season action, and even same goes for Zach Aston Reese. But I can envision it in my mind that looks like a line that's going to wreak havoc defensively. They honestly could get in the forecheck a lot. They might not even have to defend in their own zone, but you know that if they're in it, they're capable of getting out of it. So, loving it on that front. From there, I believe it's Engvall, Kerfoot, Yarncroak is what it might be to start. Well, it does depend on if Tavares is going to be playing, but Kerfoot, I'm cool with him on the third line. If he's not in the top six, that's a great sign. Engvall, he's going to have to get up to speed just because he's coming off of injury. Yarncroak had a great preseason debut there. I believe the two-goal debut. And once again, we're going to have to get better looks at him. But the main theme in this Leafs bottom six is versatility. And when I say versatility, it doesn't necessarily have to mean to a 200-foot game in terms of defensively and offensively. You can be versatile and still be primarily an offensive or defensive forward. It's things like, are you playing 5-on-5 well, and can you play on the second power play unit? Are you a face-off specialist and then can penalty kill? It's things like that. Like Nylander, I would say, is a versatile forward because offensively, no matter the situation, I trust him. Tavares, same idea. He brings you the face-offs as well. So that's the main theme in this Leafs lineup is versatility up front. The top six, I don't know if I've got to touch too much on it. We know that's a great top six. I'll touch on Malgin just because he looks like the new addition that's going to start there. Even him, if he can show he's versatile offensively, which it looks like he did in the preseason, then that's a great sign. So the lead forward group, deepest I've seen, or just to start a season. Sometimes the opinion is obviously going to change during the year, but to start out, love it on paper. And defensively, it's all about depth as well, right? There's potential here. Well, not really potential because they're going to have to make a trade. This is, like we touched on, just barely a cap legal roster, $4 short. But hypothetically speaking, if everyone was healthy, Justin Hall is what, your seventh defenseman? There's obviously an opinion to be had there. Hall, Liljegren, Sandin, whoever you want as to consider your seventh defenseman. That's a great seventh defenseman. They don't deserve to be out of the top six. And like I said, we're going to have to make a trade on some front. Might not even be on defense, but I'm loving how that's looking. I know that Sandin obviously prefers to play on his left side. He's going to start here with Giordano, and Sandin that is going to play on the right to start. But he's an offensive defenseman. He scored in the preseason as well. He should honestly flourish offensively playing on his offside. At least that's what most defensemen prefer. Unless you're TJ Brody and you're just a freak and you prefer to play on your offside for defensive purposes. The guy's nuts. And then on the goaltending front, I think we touched on it a bit last episode, but Matt Murray, great preseason. Samsonov, pretty decent as well. We're going to see Samsonov make his Leafs debut against his former team.
Oh, I'm excited.
We were talking about that earlier today. We're all excited on that front. It's going to go great for one, or possibly great for two of us. Not so great for the other guy, but
we'll see.
I mean, or the other way around. The other way. No, I shouldn't, especially after the Jays. I shouldn't just not talk, just let games unfold before my eyes. But on paper, the Leafs roster looks great, and I am an optimist usually. Like I probably always say Leafs roster looks great, but I like it, and we're gonna see if it holds up. Dave, what do you got?
Dave, if you don't mind, let me go first. I like the way your team's structured. I like defensive third line, checking fourth line, top six, offensive. That works for me. Lots of defensive depth. Kyle Dubas should probably get arrested for the Giordano contract. He's getting ridiculous value for that.
Yeah.
I also did an article on Michael Bunting and the value per dollar you guys are getting. He's getting like
he's got to be top 10, right?
Yeah, he's like the comparable is Jeff Skinner relative to like dollar, right? And Jeff Skinner's making like 9 times more. If you want a softer comparable, it's Ryan Johansson in terms of like per dollar exactly and shooting percentage. Check that out in my article. But you're getting like generously 5 times more value per dollar out of this guy, which I think is ridiculous. The Giordano contract itself is a steal, and it makes up for the other contracts that aren't too hot on the team. Yes, you guys are strapped right to the top with what like the $4 you said left over, but it fits, right? And that's what matters. And going into the playoffs, it doesn't even matter. Cap doesn't impact playoffs, therefore, who cares? Dubas did a fantastic job. I know he's on the hot seat technically right now, but regardless, he's done well for you guys, and he's made all the right business decisions. And well, now you guys have a top 10 roster. I'll even generously say top 6 roster in the league. Generously.
Very specific. Is 5 the Caps by chance, or
no? We're barely top 10.
Okay.
Right. But
okay. Right.
Another thing I want to touch on is Ilia Samsonov. I have no bad blood towards him. I'm a little upset towards our management, especially when you look at the waiver wire, which I will get into later. We just like giving away young players and good players for nothing. I mean, I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but Stevenson on Vegas, yeah. We'll leave it at that. Dave, you can start with your Leafs talk.
Hopefully my internet doesn't give out. Listen, I'll echo the same sentiments that Cristian's got. Starting, the biggest additions for this offseason definitely came at our depth in our bottom 6. Adding on to the hyphen talk before. All we got to add now is Jacob Bernard Docker from Ottawa. And, we got almost a full line there.
Yeah.
That's awful. Okay.
You're going to get more of it, Brian. This is just the beginning, man.
Oh, my goodness. Dave, finish up.
I love those. Sorry. I love those.
Hyphenated names?
Kind of sandpaper options there. At the bottom, Yarn Croak. I know Abe Kubel isn't a stranger to mucking it up there. Zach Aston Reese is unnoted big body, could definitely do some bit on the forecheck there, and they've also got a bit of a scoring upside as well. I think it's a sneaky thing to also not to add on to think you want your depth to chip in here and there when your big boys can't do it. Um, and I'll agree with that statement. I think the Leafs have definitely got opening night right now one of the deepest lineups in the league, 100%. And even for Bryan to kind of give them credit too shows just how far the rosters come in the over the past few years. Because before Bryan was telling us, overhyped, overrated. Well, they might still be, but you know what? There's definitely clear signs of progress that Kyle Dubas has been making. And I don't know if any of that came through on the feed or not, guys, but
You're good.
hopefully it did. I'm sorry
No,
I can't
we're
get
all
into
good.
more in depth, but
I think
No, no,
that
I think you had good
but
stuff.
yeah,
I think that you can see the real like change from the year that we played you guys in the playoffs. That like you guys went from like getting on your bike to like now you're like flying a jet almost. It's like it's ridiculous how
Top
much.
pairing defenseman Martin Marincin. You got a problem with that, Brian?
Yeah, he's very good for you guys.
Oh yeah.
Regardless though, you guys do look a lot better, and it's kind of sad because you guys are on the way up and then we're on the way down and we're kind of meeting each other at this point. You know what I mean? It's like we're at crossroads now. But regardless, Dubas has done an excellent job and you got to give him credit for that. But if he gets sacked, I bet you he does get hired within the next 3 days after getting sacked.
I mean, we've had confirmation of that. I believe it was Chris Johnston that said he spoke to an NHL executive, and they said if this guy was available, my owner is hiring him immediately. So that just goes to show you, it's one of those situations where if he does get sacked, it's not because of ability. It's time. It's kind of we don't have this too often with the GM, but it's that idea of he's expired on the team where you've seen your vision through, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened. Um, I, I don't even know. It might not even come to that. But listen, there's even leverage on Dubas' side here. He could go out, have a great season, make some deadline moves, and say, "All right, now my contract value's gone up. Why don't I see what the open market has? We've got free agency for GMs coming up, maybe, right?" So. Uh, he's made some good moves. I don't have too many negative things to say on that front. And even the coach has acknowledged this is the most options he's had to pick from to start a season. We haven't even mentioned Nick Robinson, who's been the biggest story at camp and didn't even quote unquote make the opening roster for the aforementioned cap reasons. He's been sent down to the Marlies. He is likely to get called up on an emergency basis following game one if Tavares does miss it. And there's some possible more death. Like I said before, if Nick Robinson can provide offensive versatility, not just the scoring touch, but maybe it's on the forecheck or playmaking, that's great. That's what we want. So
We
we'll see. We'll see you in the first round, Brian.
Robertson. Oh, we'll see if we get there. uh, I was gonna. I'm just gonna leave it at this off before we go in intermission. But like when the year we won, we had Verano come up, right? And Verano like provided that spark. And I feel like if you have a team that's competing at that level, that deep into the playoffs, well, in the playoffs for you guys, you need to have like, some sort of jolt of energy or someone just to like provide something, some young blood, I guess. I mean, we've seen Matthews obviously play well for you guys, but then I don't have any. Obviously, I don't watch you guys as much as you guys, but I don't watch the Leafs as much as you guys. But we haven't seen anyone provide that spark when you need it. That jolt of energy, and maybe Robertson can do that. We have to see. I mean, from my perspective, Rana did that, and it helped us a lot during that run. But since we've been at this for an hour, we're just gonna go on a quick little intermission. We're gonna go on a little 5-minute break. We will be back in. Well, if you're watching this on the VOD, it's gonna take like 5 seconds, but we'll be right back. All right, so we are back from a little intermission. Sorry about that. I just had to use the washroom. So we were talking about the Leafs opening night roster just right now, and I was talking about how Robertson could be the spark, for the Leafs in the playoffs. Regardless, we're going to move on from that topic. We're going to talk about the waiver wire that just occurred earlier today at the time of recording, obviously. So I know that you guys have some thoughts on this one, but Nick Foligno was dropped and was not picked up on the waiver wire, from what I'm aware of. What do you guys think about that?
It sounds like it's more just an injury, not specifically an injury right now, but he's slowed down because of injuries. It's the contract that kills his value there. I'm sure he could fill in on a fourth line, but he can't pick up that cap hit. I believe it's in the threes. It's probably the last year of his deal, but it's above three. If you don't have, he's probably fitting right now in his career the same mold as a Wayne Simmons, as in physical bottom six presence, probably on your fourth line, maybe a 13th forward, grading the locker room. And Simmons provides you that for $900K. Nobody took him. I didn't see any reason for somebody to take Foligno. I know that people were talking about maybe Philly on the Foligno and Simmons front for a waiver claim. The Torts connection there on the Foligno front, I guess, but I'll leave the Washington takes to you, Brian. But in terms of surprises that got through, other than Foligno that we mentioned was a note, I had Matthias Janmark as one. I believe he put 27 points or around there last year for Vegas. I'm surprised that he got through. He's got on a one-year deal for $1.25 million. He was with Edmonton in training camp. Didn't make the opening night roster. I always thought he was formidable as just a bottom six forward. So there was no surprise there. Colorado, Martin Kautz. I know he had a bit of pedigree. There's a couple prospects like that. Klim Kostin was another one with St. Louis. He ended up getting traded to Edmonton. And then I had Emil Benstrom with CDJ. He's kind of in the Martin Frk mold, where I think he's just a clap bomb on the power play, and that's his whole game. But I don't know. I find that interesting. Like, Martin Frk's got the hardest shot record, I think, at like 110 kilometers an hour. I don't know. A young guy, good shot. Kind of sounds like Nick Robertson when you talk about it like that. But those are the guys that I was surprised. You could make arguments either way, but for me personally, maybe if I was a GM, I might have took that extra second look at those guys.
Dave, you got anything before I finish up?
Yeah. So on the waiver wire, like, I know for the Leafs, they had 4 of them, which I believe might have been the most for all 32 teams. I don't know if anybody had 4 or more.
We had 4. I know that.
Did you guys have 4?
Yeah, but not all of them got stolen. Whatever. Finish up.
You sent 4 down, but 4 did not make it through.
Yeah.
So one big surprise for me was that all 4 of the Leafs waiver claims made it through. That's Simmons, Wayne Simmons, Victor Mete, Kyle Clifford, and I'm blanking on the 4th name.
Gaudette.
Adam Gaudette, new acquisition there. I thought for sure one of the 4 was going to get picked up. I don't think Simmons has enough value anymore. I think, unfortunately, his time's passing him. I think Kyle Clifford is in the same boat where, it's just not a league suited to him anymore. I was kind of surprised that Victor Mete made it through. I think he's still a serviceable puck-moving defenseman. Maybe he doesn't have the offensive upside that a lot of people were projecting for him. And unfortunately, he did suffer an injury in the Leafs preseason that kind of knocked him down the pecking order. Same thing with somebody like Jordy Ben, who wasn't on waivers, but suffered a relatively long-term injury and might be out for a while. And even somebody like Adam Gaudette, I think might still have value. And the thing with the Leafs is it seemed like now recently over the past few seasons, every time that they've had to put up a player due to cap restraints, they haven't been able to keep them. We look back at somebody like Jimmy Vesey, who was claimed off of waivers. it just seems like that the Leafs were always a victim of the waivers. So that was kind of a big surprise to me that none of them got picked. That all of them made it through. I thought for sure maybe one was going to get picked up, but it's glad to see that they're all still in the organization and can be recalled at any time.
In regards, before I get into my rant, the Bruins dropped Mike Riley. I think is a pretty good offensive D-man. 3x3, or I think something similar to that. I know he's making 3 million for sure. I'm not too sure how many years left on the deal, but no, like you're dropping an offensive D-man, a fantastic top four guy on the waiver wire, and no one picks him up. I guess teams are really just cap strapped this season, and I'm glad it's
Yeah,
gone.
I think it's Bruins fans were saying that was the wrong decision.
Yeah, he's a great player. With the Foligno one, I get it. I mean, the guy's beat up. He's has some long miles on him, and he honestly at this point is just a leadership figure. Not for that money though. It's not worth it at that point. On a 1 year deal for league min, I don't see why any team should pass up that opportunity. But I think he's making four, right?
I want to say it's in the threes.
In the threes, even then, it's
It,
still too pricey for me.
still, yeah.
But then
Yeah.
again, Mike Riley, top four demon, offensive talent. I don't know how that guy just gets through like that. Regardless, yeah, there's a lot of big surprises as well for this waiver wire. Conor Ingram dropped by Nashville, didn't officially get through. He was snatched up by Arizona. Good for him. He'll be able to make a name for himself because I think Saros is 100% has number one position over there in Nashville. But yeah, that's basically it, except for the capital stuff. You guys have anything to say before I go?
Great for my that Ingram pickup is great for my 10% pick. At least now,
Yeah.
Vezina. I don't think we're gonna roll with that the entire season. But my boy Vezina doesn't have to play all 82 games next year. So, and I think Conor Ingram's a pretty. I think he's started to show his capabilities as a backup. And you know what? I wish him well. I wish that whole team the most of luck, the best of luck for this season because wow, is it going to be tough for them? If you missed that conversation, please go back to the last episode where we had almost a 20-minute conversation on the Arizona Coyotes, and I staked my claim on the Arizona Coyotes making the playoffs this year. So, Brian, if you have anything else to say, man, be my guest.
I'll go.
I'll just chime in, Brian, real quick. I just want to touch. I think Bill Armstrong was the one who watched the episode, GM of the Arizona Coyotes, because he obviously listened to me, and I was saying Conor Ingram, great goalie insurance for the President's Trophy winning Nashville Predators, and lo and behold, now I think Dave's prediction rose from 10% to 11%. Mine maybe went down 9%. It's a tight race here between the predictions.
I might have went up from a 10 to a 10.5, honestly, Cristian, but
that's generous.
Debatable. It's up for debate.
Okay, going into it, I have my notes here that the Capitals, we waived Lucas Johansson, Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, and Brett Leeson. Lucas Johansson successfully did get sent down to Hershey, but Axel Jonsson-Fjällby and Brett Leeson were picked up by the Jets and the Ducks respectively. What are we doing? We have such great talent from our system coming up every single year, and we never give them a shot because our lines on our main team are too strong and we just can't take them down. Not only are these guys young, promising players, but we're aging. We probably have the oldest team in the league, and we're not giving them a chance. Yes, I get it. McMichael gets to play. Yes, Faravari gets to play. And yeah, at one point, Siegenthaler and Rana both got to play. The issue now is, though, that we are so old and slow. We need to inject some youth in there. And why can't Leeson play? He's shown so much promise. Fjällby was great last season when he did get the chance to play. The only guy that you can really say, okay, I guess we got to keep, which is good, was Protus, who I think made the team. Probably won't play that often, given how stacked our wings are this year. But it's just disappointing to see us lose fresh talent like this again and again and again, and then we see them do well elsewhere. And not only does it drive me crazy because, if we kept all these pieces, we'd be so much stronger as a team, but it's just not a good look for the fan base when we see players like this go. Rana's going to read my article about this. Rana's probably going to get 40 goals next season. Math makes sense. Math checks out.
Shameless plug.
And I do have a couple articles coming out later for other young players, but even Siegenthaler showed to be, I think, top 10 defensively in defenseman last year, and we gave him up for nothing. Do you know how good he would have looked on our defense this season? Regardless, it's just even us losing our two goalies, Vanacek and Samsonov, for basically peanuts. Those are supposed to be promising pieces. Now we're stuck with, I guess Kemper won the cup last year on a stacked team, but what happened to the whole idea of breeding youth and developing and drafting like how we've always done for so long? Now it just feels like we have a whole bunch of rentals and aging players, and our window's closing faster than it thinks. If we want to extend it, I think that getting rental players and getting older players onto the team is the wrong idea. Instead, we should be giving chances to the young players. Give them something to work for it, because at least they have the fire in them. At least that they can bring something new to the team. I know what Johansson's going to do. I know what Sheary's going to do. If we give Leeson that chance, maybe he might do better. If he doesn't, our wings are still stacked regardless. And I get it. It's hard to beat the wings, like beat Ovechkin, McMichael, Johansson, Sheary, Brown, Mantha, Oshie, and Hathaway for a spot. But at least try. And going into Lucas Johansson getting dropped down to Hershey again, we have two D-men that have not been given the opportunity, Alexiev and Johansson. They're both supposed to be in NHL at this point since getting drafted, but the problem is our defense is old and they just keep their spots. We were running with Eric Gustafsson, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Jensen, Orlov, Faravarva, and Carlson. After this season, the only one signed is Carlson. If we don't give these guys a chance this season, we're just going to throw them into the fire next season. It just doesn't make sense. Hopefully they get a chance to play. Hopefully Johansson gets a chance to play. I've seen what he can do. We know his brother's a great NHL forward. That doesn't mean anything about him being a great D-man at the NHL level, but at least give the guy a shot. I'd rather see Lucas Johansson play than another season of Trevor Van Riemsdyk. And I hate to say it like that, but at this point, we're shaky already. If we throw a new guy up there, at least we're taking a chance on something. Regardless, that's my little rant. Sorry, guys.
Bryan, for us non-Caps fans, can you give it, just off the top of your head, if you can't, don't worry about it, but give us some player comparables in terms of play style for these guys that aren't getting spots. So I feel like I've heard Janssen Fjallby there. I've seen a comparison to Hagelin. Is that accurate or
kind of? I'd say that
he's a taller guy, right?
Yeah. Well, they're both tall.
Yeah.
Listen to, they're both hard workers. Okay. They're both fast, and they both are promising in the sense that they do everything they need to right. It's just that it's hard to show off when you're on the fourth line of a stacked wing team, right? And though they don't have the offensive capabilities yet, Protas kind of does, but we got to keep him obviously. But it's just these guys are missing that little bit of finish in the final third. But everything else, they're serviceable 3 and 4, like wingers, right? On either side. It's just, I'm tired of losing guys for free and for nothing. Going back to it, like Chandler Stevenson of Vegas, he's a second liner now. And we had him on our fourth line, just rotting away. And we lost him for nothing, basically. It's just not right.
Nate Schmidt?
That's another one. Grubauer, that's another one. There's just so many guys that we just lose for nothing and they just blossom elsewhere. If we kept all these guys, we might have the best team in the world. And I'm not even exaggerating if you look at our roster. And obviously, cap, right? It has to be cap compliant. But on paper, it makes sense. I don't know. I'm kind of sick of seeing Marcus Johansson and Connor Sheary again. But I don't know.
Dave, get in on this intervention for Bryan. How can we cheer him up? This guy is all sad about the waiver wire. Dave's. We need an intervention with Dave's Wi-Fi as well, so it's okay. It's all right.
I think I went on for 3 minutes there. Sorry, I saw that the waiver wire happened.
Oh my god, it was way more than 3 minutes, but it was a good rant. It was a good what do you call those in those Shakespeare
Monologues.
books? Is a
Monologues.
monologue, like a soliloquy or whatever? Nice monologue, Brian. I rated it. It was good.
I don't know. Like it's the same if you guys were to lose Robertson for nothing. Well, you guys had a similar story. Like
Oh well, yeah, that would definitely be terrible. What were you going to bring up? What's the Leafs comparison? I'm trying to think of it
I was
myself.
gonna say Bracco, but Bracco, like I don't even know what happened to him. He's not a 60-point scorer. I can tell you that.
Bracco was, yeah, no, Bracco was a lot of other stuff as well. No, but I get the frustration. I'd say this year more than ever, we're seeing that teams are very conscientious about all moves they're making. Like every dollar counts this year. I want to say that maybe it feels like player contracts have gone up over the past 2 years, but obviously we haven't seen that reflected in the cap. And we talk about how that kills usually the middle class of the NHL, but I think it's just there's a lot of teams that they can't even take on that minimum salary on a team. We saw Arizona do it with Valimaki and Ingram, but outside of them, we haven't seen it too much this year. So it doesn't seem like GMs are too willing to make those moves.
It just
Bring
like
it up every segment. Maybe the cap will change things when it goes up. I don't know.
maybe, hopefully, when the cap goes up in a few years. But going back to it, like I said, we have like our whole D, like every single defenseman's unsigned next year except for Carlson. Orlov might not come back if the cap doesn't make sense because we know he's gonna get paid. Jensen will get paid, right? And then like Lucas Johansson and Alexei are going to come up with no experience in the NHL. Two rookie demons, like taking up top four and potentially a top six role. Like that just doesn't sound smart, especially when you're trying to go for the cup or contend while our window is still kind of open, right? It's just not a 500 IQ play.
It's a philosophy thing, right? Like what philosophy do you prescribe to in terms of replacing talent on your roster? Is it they go out and find NHL ready talent via trade, or is it like you said, the draft and develop, recycle, and naturally turn over the roster? I know you bring up the defense there, where outside of Carlson, no one signed for next season, but you have to, I'd say, take the perspective of that is simultaneously a bad thing, but a good thing as well. I could see how you can totally rebuild the blue line and end up potentially with a better blue line, right? One that isn't as old. It's something similar that the Leafs went through. Obviously, not exactly the same, but on the goaltending front, I was a big supporter of re-signing Campbell. I thought 5x5 that was a fair deal. But the more, not the more I thought, I had to be convinced that, hey, Matt Murray on a 2-year deal isn't bad, because just as much as there isn't security in goal, and that's a good thing, you can now pivot if things go wrong because you're not locked to an individual player. So there's two sides to the coin.
Being locked to a player is okay when the window is still kind of open in the sense that we can build upon our core already, if that makes sense, right? If you look at our like cup winning team, Kempny, Carlson, Orlov, Niskanen, right? Like they knew their place, and then we just added pieces around that to make it stronger in that sense. Now I just feel like we're just shuffling guys in and out, and it doesn't make sense. It's like you can't build a system in like Rome wasn't built in a day is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. There is teams where they do the mercenary route, where it's adding guys at the deadline, just plugging holes. That's a good comparison. That's a good comparison.
Like,
yeah.
And then
I still like the depth, Brian. I kind of like the Caps this year. I do.
We definitely do have a strong team like usual, but the problem is like we know what we're getting at this point, right? It's like you're going to the same pizza place over and over again. Like it's time for us to try something new. Try something different. And I thought Leeson was going to be that. Instead, we decided to hang on to Sherry. And I don't know, like we're deep at least, but now those guys aren't going to be even in our organization anymore. I'm happy for them, but it sucks at the end of the day. Sorry guys, that was a little bit too long.
It's something to keep an eye on. No, it's interesting. I'm going to keep an eye on that. See how the vets perform in Washington. They're not running it back, but they're even getting some of the older Caps guys that like Marcus Johansson. He's still fresh in my mind as a Leafs fan from 2016-17.
Oh
So
yeah, I have another
we'll
guy.
see. Maybe the vet route is the way to go.
I have another guy that like like a lot of people might not know that they're that like a former Capitals guy came up through our system, but Zach Sanford.
Who's he? Is he with Ottawa?
I think he's with the Blues now, but I know that he was fantastic for them during the Cup run. Um,
You know what? Yeah, I
he's with
totally
the Preds
forgot that
now.
he was with them. He's on the Preds now. He's making the rounds. Was that the Shattenkirk trade? That was right.
Yep. And what I can tell you is that like that's a guy that I thought was gonna be on our like third line with Eller for like a long time. Obviously, like we took the chance with Shattenkirk and it didn't really work out, but at the end of the day,
Sanford
like
hasn't really worked out too much either, though. You,
for
you
the
thought he was Tom Wilson 2.0, right?
yes,
Yeah.
but the thing is like with the Blues, he did his job, right? And like had we had kept him, like things could have worked out better for us. Obviously now hindsight's 2020, but that's another guy that's like an NHLer. But anyway,
Yeah.
sorry guys. Moving on to the next topic. We're gonna go into the best opening night roster. So, going into next season, who do you guys think is the best team?
Dave, you want to give it a try, buddy? Let's see where you're at.
All right.
He's
Yeah.
back.
So
He's back.
let's hope again we don't die here. I think the most obvious answer has to be the reigning Stanley Cup champion, Colorado Avalanche. Can't go too much wrong. Like can't go very wrong with that opening. Like the opening five there. You've got
That's a freebie,
um,
by the way. That's a gimme.
yeah. Listen.
Listen, man, you gotta balance
Okay,
it, man.
it is a freebie, but there also comes a time where you've seen cup champions at the end, like where the core and the team is at the end of their road and they've had to sell off their pieces and they come back not as strong. I think with the Abs, though, they're still like right in the middle of it. They could go back to back this year. They could maybe even do a three-peat for all we know. That's going to be a question. That's going to be something to talk about maybe in 2 years' time to see where this team is. But Arturi Lehkonen. This is from Daily Faceoff, by the way, and they are listing Gabe Landeskog right now as being out, so he's not day to day. Does anybody know what his injury is? I haven't been keeping up.
Him, I think it might be a little bit more than day to day. I'll work on that while you go through the rest of the lineup there.
Okay, 100%. I mean, you got just their top, like their starting, their opening line would be Lehkonen, McKinnon, Rantanen, Devon Taves, Cale Makar. Those five right there, that five right there, definitely like you're not finding too many more lines in the league that's as offensively gifted and then also balances out with a little bit of that, a bit of that grit. Like I love Arturi Lehkonen, man. That guy was an absolute killer against the Leafs, and somebody who I wish that the Leafs it would have just fallen into place and the Leafs would have been able to pick up. Obviously, you have Nate Mack, the Mac Daddy, 12.6 a year, just 100K more than Connor McDavid this year. He just signed his new
Good
contract.
for him, eh? Good for him.
Um,
He finally got it
yeah,
back
hats off
after
to him.
all
Get your
these years
money.
carrying that dead team. Well, they were dead for a while, but
You
then
can,
obviously they
and you
won.
can
So
still argue it might be a discount, honestly.
yeah, you definitely could. Anyway, Dave, sorry about that. You can finish up if you want, or is that it? All
I
right,
think Dave is on his way to play on the fourth line of the Colorado Avalanche. No, I'm joking.
all right.
Yeah, I'm. Do you want? I want. I'm interested in yours, Brian. If you want to go ahead, buddy.
Um, I also I just wanted to say, Gorgiev going and French shoes, deadly combo for the
Yep.
Avs. I just want to finish off Dave's point, since his internet died. But so my pick for the best open night roster is actually the Senators. I
Okay.
know, it's a wild take.
Best, but the most surprisingly good roster, right? Like
Yes. That's where we're going with this. Like
I
a
don't
team.
like we're not saying that they're going to be the best team in the league. Yeah,
No,
just
no,
want to
no.
clarify.
A team that you
Yeah.
look at and you're like, wow, this team is
Mm-hmm.
surprisingly good. So I'm just gonna go over the
Mm-hmm.
top six and a couple of demon, obviously, because like I don't want to get too far into it. Um, Kachuk, Norris, Giroux, who they added, Stutzla,
Mm-hmm.
and DeBrincat, who I think is gonna have a crazy season this year. This is just their left
Yep.
side on D. Shabbat, Brandstrom, and Sanderson.
Yeah. The
That
right side isn't too hot, but when you have a left D like that, it doesn't have to be.
it's if that's your left side, you have generational talent from top to bottom, youth, and they're all offensively talented. When you think of it like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
a scary combo, especially because this might be their left side for the next 10, well, 10's being generous, but let's say 8 years, right? Especially now that Shabbat's been locked up for a bit. This
Mm-hmm.
can be a scary team for the next few years, especially in that tough Atlantic division. They're gonna get good. They're gonna get good fast. Just a matter of time before they show up, and this could be the year.
No, I definitely I was very very impressed with hashtag Summer of Pierre. It was quite a summer for that guy over there. That top six, like I said, you can really make an argument. It might be the best top six in the league.
Oh,
That's
easily,
I don't
easily.
like saying that. I don't like saying that. Um, I don't. I get. I'm supposed to hate the Sens because I'm a Leafs fan, but like I don't hate them yet. They might make me hate them this year if they do more. They usually are a thorn in the Leafs side in the regular season, but if they really do some damage to us this year, yeah, that's gonna definitely hurt. And my roster that surprised me for how good it looks considering the circumstances is Minnesota. Just looking at their depth, I really like it. They've got really great offensive options on all four of their lines, or at least prospective offensive options. Obviously, Kaprizov on your first line. Your second line is that shutdown line with Joel Eriksson Ek, who has brought the offense to his defensively rounded out game. Marcus Foligno on the right side there. He had a bit of a outlying season last year, 23 goals. Tyson Jost, the newcomer there on that second line. So that is definitely more defensively oriented. But like I said, Eriksson Ek there, he's picked up the slack offensively in the past 2 years. Your third line, you have Matthew Boldy, who this guy had 39 points in 47 games in his rookie season last year. If he's anywhere close to that type of point production on your third line, on your power play is incredible. And you've got Marco Rossi on your fourth line to start the year with the possibility that he moves up your lineup, right? So the potential for offensive output, considering this is a team with nearly 12 million in dead cap space this year from the Suter Parise buyouts, is pretty astounding. And the defense is well rounded out as well. Spurgeon, Brody, and Dumba, underrated pickup last year, Jacob Middleton, and then you have Goligoski and Addison rounding up the top six. It's formidable. There isn't necessarily a standout number one D, but you've got a bunch of 2 and 3 options that can definitely keep up with any of the forward lines they're up against. And in goal, we know they brought back Fleury, and they traded for one of Ottawa's goaltenders, Philip Gustafson. I think that's good enough goaltending that they'll be back in the playoffs, and that's not necessarily something I expected with that aforementioned 12 million in dead cap space.
With 12 million dead in cap, you'd expect the team to be leashed up a little bit, for a lack of a better term or phrase. But you know what? They definitely do have a strong team when you look at it like that. They've had the same decor for like seems like forever, right? They
Yeah.
they've known to be a strong defensive team, and I'll be honest with you, the Pacific is so weak that I think the Central teams will just get in for free with wild cards. If you look at it like that, and Minnesota definitely could get in. Uh yeah, but if that's your good team, what's your not so good team, Cristian?
But not so hot team is a team that's actually very hot when you look at their name. Haha, very, very great pun as usual, Christian. I know, guys, you're going to love these puns. Get ready. Yeah, the Flames. Not so hot as I expected when we have all the talk of Summer of Pierre, Summer of Brad was pretty good too. And don't get me wrong, the moves he made, incredible moves, but I'm not sold at all on that bottom six in Calgary. You've got. I'll go through their lineup. I'll mention who's on the second line just to give you an idea of why their bottom six look like this. But you have Dylan Dubé, who's going to be having to step up into that second line right wing role this season, and they don't really have many other options that can replace him there. He had 32 points in 79 games last year. If he doesn't bring that up, I don't know how much I like that line. You also have Andrew Mangiapane. We'll have to see if he was a flash in the pan last year. But the bottom six has Blake Coleman, Michael Backlund. Those are obviously two very good two-way forwards. We'll see how their health holds up. I know Backlund is sometimes in and out of the lineup. Last year he did play a full season, and we saw in the playoffs he picked it up. But Trevor Lewis is on your third line. That's not really a great sign. And your fourth line is Milan Lucic, Kevin Rooney, and Brett Ritchie. I mean, that's a Daryl Sutter fourth line if I've ever heard it, but is that a modern NHL fourth line? Remains to be seen. We know the defense is pretty good, but you have Nick Milosh as your sixth defenseman. I was surprised by that. We talk about the top four: Hanifin, Anderson, Uyghur, Tanev. Pretty good, but Zadorov, Milosh. Hey, it is a good top four, but I feel like that third pair can be exposed, and it's something I bring up because when the Leafs played Boston back-to-back years, we saw specific pairings or specific sides of our pairs being exposed. For us, it was our right side defensemen were exposed. Hainsey, Zaitsev, whoever was playing on the bottom pair. Bruins feasted on that side of the ice. It was a specific game plan. So, I don't know. The bottom six, the offensive depth doesn't impress me as much as I thought it would. And this is like I went through some of the rosters and just did a glossary look and said, okay, I expect this team to look this good. Opened their cap friendly page, took a look at it, and I don't know. At first glance, the Flames didn't. Hot, eh? Yeah, but the Daryl Sutter effect will probably propel them higher than they appear on paper. So yeah, 100%. Flames Dave, not so hot.
Dave, you got a take on that?
I think all the points you brought up there are completely valid, Cristian. But and we saw it this year. That Daryl Sutter effect, I don't think it could be understated. Like, that's a guy that has been there, won 2 cups with the Kings. Even with those Kings teams, it was kind of very, very. No, I'm not going to disrespect the Kings here, but that Jonathan Quick in net definitely helped out his style of play. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was very close quarters. It was very grinding to you're grinding sandpaper basically with Daryl Sutter types of teams here, and good goaltending. Good goaltending really helps. So I'm really looking for Jake Markstrom to step up. He had a pretty good regular season last year, but if he at any point starts to show his Edmonton playoff series woes at all this year, I think that Calgary team that was riding red hot for much of last season might start to show a few more cracks than we saw.
You guys know that I have the Flames making the playoffs this season, I guess. Mainly because the Pacific is just so weak, but I think that Markstrom is good enough to carry that that poor D line. He has to figure out what the Oilers found out about him, because they definitely did some analysis on him specifically, just figure out weak points and stuff like that. But in regards to this, if Markstrom could fix that aspect, I think he's good enough. I think that the team should be getting into the playoffs. And like I said, they do have a 5-year window to win the cup. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made a run. Maybe not. I don't think they'll win it within the next 5 years, but they'll definitely do some damage and definitely make a name for themselves.
Yeah, and just to wrap up on the Flames, I don't think they're necessarily not going to make the playoffs. It's more the comparison with Edmonton that we've been making.
Yep.
I looked at Edmonton's roster, and I really like the depth that I saw. And that's not something I've usually said about Edmonton's depth. The emergence of someone like Dylan Holloway, that's a big one. He had a hat trick, I believe, in one of the preseason games. Ryan McLeod is getting some top 9 time. You still have young guys like Yamamoto and Puyarvi, despite being on the trade block. It's depth that they haven't had in Edmonton for much of McDavid and Draisaitl's tenure. And in that perspective, that's where I see the Flames might fall short of, let's say, winning the division versus coming in maybe second or third.
No, like even looking at the Flames wings right now, like as a Capitals fan, I'm looking at their wings and I'm like, we smoke these guys like 100%. Like our like player for player, winger for winger, left side and right side, we win every single time. Regardless, speaking of the Flames, while we have it now, I know that you guys are attached to somebody that recently signed with the Flames. If you guys want to go over that, you guys can. If not, we'll move on to the next topic.
Dave, you got any Kadri thoughts?
Ooh, I mean, listen, I've always liked the guy. I still think his deal is very fair. I think he was definitely getting underpaid going into this past season, and capping it off with the ring and definitely getting his due diligence. I would say after all those years in Toronto where it was kind of constant failure, many more downs than there were ups for much of his, especially his early career. He's a guy that I've always loved. I've loved Kadri. Haven't always loved his actions, and I think you could separate the two. And I do wish him all the best on Calgary, and I hope he succeeds. Now, saying that, is he going to be a guy to break his point record, which he just set last season with the Avs? I don't know. It kind of depends. I personally don't see it on a Daryl Sutter type of team. I know last year that all those guys in the top 6 were breaking their own records left and right. But are we going to kind of see a continuation of that, especially after losing guys like Gaudreau, like Kachuk over the offseason, even to an extent, Sean Monahan, who was a core piece of that team for the years prior to last season. I think those are all big losses, and we might not see as much explosivity out of that offense that we did last year. But that's also not to say that they're not going to be a very strong team and a very tough team, which is as good as you want a Daryl Sutter forward core to be.
Yeah, I think Kadri doesn't necessarily have to come in and be the 1C. You have Elias Lindholm there. Huge fan of that guy. Had a 40-goal season last year. I honestly think he's capable of repeating on that front. So he's in that 1B / second line center role. And if he's putting up, I'd say anywhere from the 65 to 75 point range, 30 goal season, that's what I'm expecting from him for the next couple of years, along with the tenacity that we've come to know Kadri for. But yeah, Kadri as a Leaf fan favorite outside of obviously how it ended. But great player, relatively speaking, and great off the ice. I also wish him all the best in Calgary.
I thought he was going to sign with us, but all I'm going to say is I'm a little bit happier with Dylan Strome after seeing that contract. Anyway, speaking of Dylan Strome, we're going to go into our last topic of the day because we're running out of time. And our last topic obviously is a player poised to break out this season. You guys already know, I think Dylan Strome's going to have a fantastic year. Well, I hope at least. He's not my guy. But we'll get into my guy later. David, who's your guy for someone that's going to break out this season?
So for me, I'm going to go with a former first overall pick, 2018 draft. The Buffalo Sabres took Rasmus Dahlin. Listen, it's no knock to Dahlin, but the Buffalo Sabres have been absolute garbage for the past 10 years. And last season, we really got to see maybe that light at the end of their long tunnel. You have guys like Tage Thompson, who is we're a big fan of on this show. At least me and Cristian are. I'm not too. I forgot Brian's thoughts on him, but I'm a big fan of Thompson. I know Cristian is as well. Um, he had his breakout last year. I think this year, and it's tough to say for a former first overall defenseman who had pretty good numbers, 53 points last year with 13 goals in 80 games. That minus 22 is definitely not something that looks good, but I'm not always going to look at plus minus here. For me, I'm looking for, a 60 plus point season from him this year. He's definitely got the offensive capabilities to notch 15 plus goals. He almost hit it last year, as we could see, and a team that's improving and starting to get its confidence once again. I don't think it's that much of a stretch to see big improvements and a big jump out of him this year. And I know a lot of people have been looking to see that jump from him for the past couple of years, and we started to see glimpses of that last year. But I think this season will be the start of first overall pick, generational talent, however you want to think of him, Rasmus Dahlin. The one thing I will be looking at though is his defensive game to improve. I know that's been a bit of a talk that as a defenseman, his defense isn't the greatest, but I guess you could give him a little bit of leeway. 22 years old, defensemen like that typically take 4, 5, 6 years in the league to fully get their feet under them. So maybe we're going to look at a much better, much improved defensive performance out of him this year. And those are my predictions on him. I don't know if you guys anything to add on to that.
I think
Ryan, you got anything on Dahlin?
I think Dahlin's poised to do well. I think that whole Buffalo franchise is poised to do better than in the past. I mean, you can only be bad for so long. Oh, no, I'm kidding. That was that was just a dig at Buffalo. But regardless, they are taking the steps to do better, and especially with their team, of course, improving slowly. You can only go up from the bottom, right? And they were at the bottom. Now they're taking steps back up. Hopefully, Dahlin shows that he is worth the number 1 pick overall back in 2018.
Yeah, I'd say he has the potential to be in that Makar Fox Hawk of perennial Norris Trophy winner. So if he gets anywhere clear or anywhere near that this year, that'd be awesome to see. My breakout pick is Dawson Mercer, second-year forward with Jersey Devils, who I mentioned. They might be a breakout team this year. So sticking with the theme, I think Dawson Mercer last year, I believe he had 17 goals, 45 of the 45 points. Something like that. And my comparison for him, not necessarily in terms of play style or size or anything, but I'm looking for a possible Jason Robertson-like ascent, where Robertson in the shortened season had a similar point per game clip, maybe a little bit higher, but I see Dawson Mercer as a do-it-all kind of forward. And I can honestly see him getting into that maybe 25-goal, 60-point range on a New Jersey Devils team that offensively looks pretty good up front as well. Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier. Then you throw in guys like Sharon Govich. I kind of like Mercer's chances as jumping into that definitive core in New Jersey. So he's one name that I've pointed out as that might be the guy on New Jersey that helps get them into that playoff picture.
Okay, I can definitely see the New Jersey doing better, and Mercer could definitely contribute to that. David, you have anything?
Yeah, just I hope for your sake, Cristian, that you're right. I know the past couple of years have been it's always been the summer of Jersey where we're always looking for them to take the steps, but those steps, it was always like 2 steps forward, but then 3 steps back. So, Dawson Mercer is going into his second full season this year. 42 points for a rookie campaign for a top 20 pick there. It is a pretty good start. If he is able to build on that, I think New Jersey could definitely have a good weapon on their hands going forward, and definitely taking the reins in the future. He's still only 20 years old.
This speaking of
I do really like that pick.
speaking of New Jersey, it's like it can't be. I can't understate how good Jack Hughes is. Like this guy's poised to get 100 points in his career eventually. I rate him very, very highly, and I think that if New Jersey is gonna pop off, he's gonna be the one to make the waves. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna be the one that's
I
gonna
mean,
have
we
all the
last
headlines.
year, right? Yeah, like he had a great season last year. I believe he was
Yes,
above a point per game. It's just a health thing, right? So
but
maybe
like
he's got a little bit more meat on his frame, and if he's healthy, yeah, I put him in that Patrick Kane mold, right? Like I think you're right. If it's not this year, 100 points, I could totally see it next year.
I'm thinking like leading the league almost in scoring. Like that's how highly I rate him. Obviously, you have McDavid that's gonna probably run away with 200 points. If Jack Hughes is getting 150 or 120, then McDavid's gonna get 300, right? I'm using
Yeah,
bad numbers here, but you
he
guys see
probably
my
needs
point.
someone to become his running mate. Yeah, he
Yeah,
needs a running mate in New Jersey to help him
yeah,
rack up the assists, perhaps, right? Yeah,
but
could
Jack
be
Hughes,
Holtz.
Maybe Dawson Mercer takes that
Right?
role. You know,
maybe,
I'll
maybe,
take it, man.
never
but
know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'm big on Jack Hughes, and I think that if New Jersey's gonna like pop off, like he's gonna be the one behind orchestrating everything, just because of how sick he is. I don't know. But that's actually not my breakout pick. I actually had a list of guys that I was going to break out that I had listed that I thought was going to break out. I'll give it shortly, but then I'll give you guys my actual pick just because we're running out of time. My list is Connor McMichael, Faravari, Georgiev / Francouz, Ottinger, and I think that Jack Eichel will have a bounce back season because, obviously injury. But my pick, shameless plug, is Jake Verano. Yeah, of Detroit Red Wings. That hurts a little bit to say, but what I can tell you right now is that he does shoot at an elite level. He does score at an elite level, and if you guys read my article, which you guys all should, if you guys are listening to this, he actually was fifth, well, top four in the league for goals per 60 minutes. Who do you think beat him out?
Forsberg, Matthews, and I don't know.
Forsberg, Matthews, and Chris Kreider. Verano was
Yeah,
fourth.
that makes sense. Yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah.
If it
Hey,
wasn't for
but
his,
I mean, yeah. Tell us some of the names he. Well, I mean, you don't have to. Those are the only three that beat him out. Anyone else in the NHL, Bryan beat out. Put it that way. Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
I didn't know that. I
Well,
didn't know that.
number five is Ovechkin. I know that for a fact. Any other list I don't have
Okay.
off the top of my head,
Wow.
but that's pretty impressive if you think about it. The only thing that
Well,
held him back was the
yeah.
injury. His dollar per value is ridiculous if he can reach that 40 goals, because I think he's only making around like 5 right now, off the top of my head, which sounds about right. But going back to it, if he can stay healthy, he's another one of those guys in that Atlantic division that can turn it up and cause some havoc. I mean, you guys play in a tough division. We'll leave it at that. Any thoughts?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think you're right. It's a tough division. Dave, get into it below.
sorry.
No,
I
go.
mean, dude, everything you've brought up is definitely like true. Like, man, I know you've been saying it for a while, Bryan, especially when he was on the Caps, and I've definitely paid more attention to him just because we're friends. But man, it can't be understated how sneakily good Jacob Brana is, and I think in a system that might suit him better, or at least give him more freedom, more reign to thrive in the Detroit system. You know, where he's not kind of sitting behind those bigger names in Ovechkin and Backstrom. I think definitely has helped him and will continue to help him. Again, his health is definitely a cause for concern, as it is for everybody. You can't predict injuries, but a fully healthy season of Jacob Verano could definitely perk up the ears of a lot of people around the league.
I have the chart here on my article that like has the Austin Matthews, Kreider, Forsberg, and Rana shooting stats percentages or whatever. Rana has a higher shooting percentage than both Matthews and Forsberg. He only loses to Kreider by 0.2%. I think that just shows how good he is at shooting. Obviously, he only played a quarter of the season, right? But at the end of the day, like over the course of a long term on a Detroit team that only got better, this guy can get 45 goals. Genuinely, he's that good, and I guess we have to see.
Yeah, I think sites like there's a if you check out Money Puck, I believe they have adjusted shooting percentage, or it kind of adjusts for shooting talent because, like you said, shooting percentage, not really viewed as a sustainable thing in the NHL, but that's for your run of the mill NHL player. When you have random guys from the bottom six that break out with a 30-goal season, that's when you'll hear everyone say, "Oh, that's not sustainable. He's going to come back down to earth next year." But obviously, that's not the case for guys like Ovechkin, Matthews, and I'd say Verano too. Like he's a skilled shooter, so I'm going to check out after this. I'm going to see where Verano lies on Money Puck for his talent-adjusted shooting percentage.
Good idea.
Probably pretty good.
And I guess that's it for this episode of the pod. Get our phone app. Make sure you check our articles. Make sure you subscribe to Fubo TV, shop at Razor, and use our link for NHLshop.com if you're looking for any Verano jerseys or any other NHL kits that are coming out. We know the reverse retros are coming out soon. But on my end, that's all I have to say. Cristian, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, I'm just excited for the regular season. Next time we talk, we'll have some actual purposeful, meaningful games that have taken place back in the NHL. So it'll be, well, like we mentioned, those have already happened.
Hold
Two of them
on.
have already
Hold on a
happened.
second. Yeah, I was about to say,
give
dude,
me-
the Sharks and the Preds don't count, Cristian?
I blame the NHL's no, yeah. You see, that just goes to show you. But all I know is the Preds are 2-0, so that prediction, I'm off to a good start. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about obviously Leaf hockey, but actual NHL games gonna have some good storylines hopefully coming out of the first week.
Dave, you got anything to say?
Subscribe to the TikTok. I don't know if you mentioned it there. I completely forget, but I'll plug it again. Trying to get those views up, and hopefully by the next time, I don't know if, what type of magic I'm going to be able to produce here after in post, but hopefully next time my Wi-Fi definitely starts to cooperate, and I'm able to share more thoughts that I was kind of limited to today. But
Okay.
nevertheless, we're going to keep going into the future.
Thank you guys again for listening. This is it for episode 2 of PuckPod by BD Sports. Also, one last thing, if you guys are looking to sponsor any podcast or any shows, or you really just enjoyed it, just leave us a comment, leave us some feedback, or reach out to us. We'll definitely get back to you guys. Thanks again, and cheers.